Welcome to Y News, I am Christopher. Industry insiders said the US eased restrictions on some of Huawei's chip exports. For now, Qualcomm can provide 5G Snapdragon chipsets to Huawei. However, there are also reports that the US may not lift the ban on Huawei domestically. These are significant changes that, if true, would help the company launch 5G smartphones, yet it would boost Qualcomm's business or squash MediaTek's growth. This is still a red flag. Because the US will only benefit US companies, the restrictions will only lift Qualcomm's 5G license. Qualcomm's sales growth will hurt MediaTek due to increased business with Huawei. Huawei currently sells 4G phones in both domestic and global markets. However, the company is still selling well without a next-generation network. The return of 5G in Huawei phones will also be a pressure on other domestic phone makers OV, Xiaomi, ZTE, and others. As early as January this year, reports hinted that the US was evaluating a ban on Huawei. This included new restrictions on Qualcomm's 4G chipsets. However, it was mentioned that US technology licensing and merchandising was still being discussed for restrictive action. And later, Qualcomm's president of technology licensing and global affairs, Alex Rogers, confirmed that the US is not restricting Qualcomm from selling chips to Huawei. Qualcomm first received a US license to sell 4G mobile processors to Huawei in 2020. However, the US Department of Commerce denied selling the 5G chipset. At the time, will increase restrictions on Huawei. Qualcomm said it had not received notice from the Commerce Department and still continued to supply 4G chips. Alex Rogers stated, "I think it's unfair to portray this as the latest restriction on Huawei. What we've seen in news reports is the impact of the Commerce Department considering not issuing new licenses. We haven't heard anything from the Commerce Department. If this news is true, Qualcomm will be able to sell a 5G chipset to Huawei, which will first appear on the Huawei Mate 60 series later this year." Last October, Huawei released the Mate 50 series, and it may keep the October release of the new product the same this year. In recent years, the United States has imposed a series of sanctions on China's chip industry, prohibiting the sale of key technologies and equipment to Chinese chip companies, but the results have been unexpected. Chinese chip companies have gradually risen under the constraints but even made significant progress, while at the same time, European and American companies are facing great challenges and pressure. China's chip industry has gained rapid development in recent years and become one of the leaders. Among them, China has gradually moved to the top echelon in the world with its outstanding performance in the R&D and production of mobile communication chips, memory chips, microelectronic devices, and independent controllable chips. The sanctions imposed by the US government on Chinese companies such as Huawei have sparked global concern. Among them, including the US chip ban on Chinese companies, is a major blow for European and American companies. A few days ago, Chinese authorities announced a ban on US memory chip maker Micron's products from entering critical infrastructure, a move seen as a major retaliation against Washington's export controls. Jensen Huang warned US lawmakers to think long and hard about implementing rules that would further restrict trade with China. "If we are deprived of the Chinese market, we have no contingency," Huang said. "There is only one market in China," he said. And he added that if US companies were unable to trade with Beijing, it would do great damage to American companies. Huang added that preventing the US technology industry from entering China would cut off the chip bill, referring to the Biden administration's $52 billion funding program to encourage the construction of more semiconductor manufacturing facilities in the United States. He said, with the loss of the Chinese market, if the US tech industry needs a third less capacity, no one will need US fabs and we'll be spinning our wheels in fabs. If the US is not thoughtful in its regulation, it will hurt the technology industry. China accounts for about 1/3 of the US tech industry market and is irreplaceable as a source of components and end markets for its products, said Zhensun Huang. Most of the world's advanced chips, including those from NVIDIA, are made in Taiwan. In response to the chip ban on European and American companies can take countermeasures in the following areas. Companies can look for other chip supply countries. China, as a huge market precipitated by a large number of high-tech companies, its huge market volume, as well as the huge investment in technology research and development, provides a unique advantage for other countries. Therefore, European and American companies can seek from other countries, such as South Korea, Japan, etc., to obtain high-quality, cost-effective chip products to improve the diversity of enterprises for chip supply. The reason why Chinese chips can develop rapidly, in addition to policy support, more importantly, is the continuous innovation efforts and investment of domestic enterprises. It is believed that in the future development, China's chip industry will continue to maintain rapid development and make greater contributions to the world's scientific and technological progress.